Hi everyone, welcome to my channel and where I talk about movies, and I'm currently in the midst of a 4-film series from a Kino Lorber Blu-ray release earlier this year, 2023. This is the Francois Truffaut Collection. I've done Wild Child, Small Change. Today I'm going to talk about The Man Who Loved Women, and that is a very appropriate cover to to this film. It's about a man who not only loved women, he loved to follow women's legs, and he would follow them to a great extent. And this is a film that begins with a funeral, and we see a hearse going into the cemetery, and we see cars pulling up and people getting out, but it's all women. There are no men at this man's funeral. And he has been and then we go back into seeing this man's story and why all these women are there to pay tribute to him. But he has been in modern nomenclature, you would probably be called a womanizer. But his conquests remain his friends. There's something different about this man who loved women. When he spots somebody that he wants to get to know, and they succumb easily. They're disarmed by his sincerity. One of the women say to him that you make me feel like your desire for me is the most important thing in the whole world. And that he doesn't parade his virility. And he's willing to go along with their needs. But these are short-term relationships. These are not meant to be long-term relationships. They're a series. The film starts out very much as a comedy, and you could actually view the whole film as a comedy because of the extent to which Charles, the womanizer, the extent to which he will go to capture his new dream girl. But then it becomes sadder. It becomes sadder because of this nature that all these relationships aren't going anywheres. The women seem to get something from Charles. Charles gets whatever he needs from them, but then he must move on. So it becomes sad because we don't really know, and maybe Charles doesn't either, why he is not looking for the women. He is looking for women in general, especially women with beautiful legs. Now, if you're familiar with Francois Truffaut's movies, you know this is a common visual motif in Truffaut's films. He is very much a calf man. He doesn't like miniskirts. He likes skirts to just below the knee, and then he obsesses, as Charles does in The Man Who Loved Women. He just is constantly, his eyes are constantly prowling. And Charles is a very well-read man. We see him in his job. It's difficult to tell what exactly his job is. He seems to be working with model planes and the flight of model planes, and he seems to be an engineer, and he's barking orders to his subordinates as to what modifications have to be made. And then we see a boat on the water in a big tank in which they turn a switch on and waves are made. It seems rather a childish occupation, whatever it is. But he is very well read. He's always reading when he's not womanizing, and he begins to wonder. He begins to wonder himself, what is the point of this fetish? Because this is very much a fetish that he has. So he decides to write down his experiences, and his experiences are the commentary in this film. Truffaut was very, very fond of commentaries. He says, and I have a bunch of books on Truffaut. In one of the interviews, he says he would go back to movies in which he enjoyed the commentary, and he would just close his eyes and listen to films that had excellent commentaries. And this is indeed an excellent commentary. And in this process of him writing the book, this is a film in color, we get some black and white flashbacks to a mother-son relationship when he was probably around 12 years old. His mother had many affairs, was not fond of him. She'd parade herself around and in various stages of undress, not so much to turn him on, but just to show him how meaningless he is. So this mother-son relationship and the fact that at that age, this is also a common theme in Truffaut movies. Everything that happens to us later, as I said in my video on Small Change, everything that happens to us up to the age of 14 determines our lives as we go on. And especially in the case of Charles, his relationship with women. So there's probably 3 or 4 main performances here by the extraordinary actresses in this film, and some very well known to film buffs. Natalie Baye in the opening segment. Leslie Caron turns up in a very, very small but very, very important scene where we get to contemplate, and Charles does himself as if he has forgotten that at one point he did experience love, true love. And then the final sequence involves Bridget Fosse. She plays an editor because his book, she champions his book when he sends it away to see if he can find a publisher. And she sort of falls in love with him, or at least as far as what the women really aren't falling in love with him. They just find him so unusual, such a singular person. And Bridget Fosse is, part of the French New Wave movie world, but she went back to when she was a little girl in Forbidden Games in the early 1950s. And then there is Charles Denner. Now, Charles Denner, you can't see him here because there's no supplements on this in this collection. This is Denner with one of his very amiable conquests. Denner's performance. Now, he was also in the Bride Wore Black, another recent Kino release. He's not on the cover. He plays one of the victims of the Bride Wore Black, and Truffaut said he was so taken with Denner's character and his performance in the Bride Wore Black that this is basically his character in The Man Who Loved Women. And his demise, there's another connection to a previous Truffaut movie. I love these kind of connections because the way Charles dies in this film is actually described. This death is actually described by a character in, I think, Truffaut's second or third film, Shoot the Piano Player. And death does hover. I mean, we see a funeral in the beginning. We know we're being led up to the point where we see Charles's own demise and what happens to him. In that sense, it's a little bit morbid. Truffaut could be a little bit morbid when it comes to his preoccupation with death. And indeed, in the next film I'm going to talk about, which will be The Green Room, is based on a short story novella by Henry James called Altar of the Dead, which I'm going to read tonight before I rewatch the film. And tragically, of course, Truffaut died just a few years after this. He was only in his early 50s from a brain tumor. And in going through all these films by Truffaut recently, you can't help thinking about all the great films that he was likely to make. And he was really, in Man Who Loved Women, he's really coming into the form of a film and the construction of the film. This is, I noticed it as well in The Story of Adele H. The formal beauty of his construction of a film is really, really striking. Now, this Man Who Loved Women did get some very good reviews. Now, when I saw it, and I couldn't remember too well my reaction to it. I thought it was probably minor Truffaut when I saw it in 1977. I don't think I've seen it since. How would I rate it today? I don't. It's definitely not a minor film. I mean, this is a movie with a lot to think about and a lot to experience, and many things to admire. And again, that's part of the benefit of viewing a director or actor in his entirety, and especially if you go through them in some sort of chronological order, you can see the progression of Truffaut from the 400 Blows, which is considered his greatest film today. And sometimes I think that's a little bit of a detriment to Truffaut's career, because there's a lot of terrific films here. Now, his films can often seem kind of unassuming. When you watch them, you wonder, well, what is my reaction supposed to be to this film? It's full of great behavioral beauty. Truffaut is this technique and this kind of construction that he's using here is been noted by critics is to harken back to one of his big idols, film idols, with Ernst Lubitsch. It's about the behavioral charm of characters, and as with Lubitsch, there is this obsession with women. So there's lots to unpack in Truffaut's movies, and so I'm really looking forward to going forward with talking about The Green Room. And I will have to also remark that this film, The Man Who Loved Women, was remade about 5 or 6 years later under the same title by Blake Edwards, starring Burt Reynolds. I haven't seen that one since it first came out, and I'm kind of anxious to revisit that one. And I will say that possibly in August I'm going to have a series of A Summer with Burt. The Longest Yard just came out. Hustle just came out. I'm really tempted to find a copy somewhere, whether even if it were streaming, of The Man Who Loved Women. Okay, so thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I do appreciate it. Comments are always welcome. Take care.